it feels like a good time to reflect on some of the worst contracts recently handed out by GMs across the league.
Watson's production so far hasn't matched the price for the Browns since joining Cleveland.
The beauty of being an NFL GM is that you can avoid making the colossal mistakes that your rival peers made. Let's analyze the worst NFL contract at every position heading into 2024. Offense. Quarterback, Deshaun Watson. The Cleveland Browns are stuck with the burden that is the $230 million fully guaranteed contract that they handed Deshaun Watson in the 2022 offseason. This came after they acquired Watson from the Houston Texans in a blockbuster trade that included 3 first-round picks. The trade was also mind-numbing at the time because Watson was about to face a lengthy suspension by the league following 24 lawsuits of disturbing allegations. But Cleveland made the trade anyway, and lo and behold, it has been a disaster up to this point. Watson was suspended for 11 games in 2022. The offense actually regressed after Watson replaced Jacoby Brissett, who did an admirable job running the group in a tough situation. Watson played 6 games for the Browns in 2023 before suffering a season-ending shoulder surgery. So through 2 seasons in Cleveland, Watson now had 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and a woeful 81.7 passer rating. To make Watson look even worse, the Browns' offense actually improved drastically after they brought in Joe Flacco. The 38-year-old won Comeback Player of the Year honors after leading Cleveland to an 11-win finish and playoff berth. The structure of Watson's awful contract means that the Browns are stuck with Mr. $230 million man until 2026. Yeesh! Good luck with that. Offense. Wide receiver, Calvin Ridley. When you look at the highest paid NFL wide receivers right now, it's hard to complain about what the top guys are making. Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Amon-Ra St. Brown have more than earned their 9-figure paydays. But it's hard to justify the $92 million contract that the Tennessee Titans handed Calvin Ridley in free agency. That right there is the 7th biggest contract for a wideout right now. And he carries the 13th highest average annual value, when Ridley isn't even a top 20 receiver. Ridley missed the entire 2020 season due to suspension for violating the NFL's gambling policy. He has only 2 1,000-yard seasons on his resume, and he wouldn't have hit the mark in 2023 if not for the 17-game schedule. Ridley was a number 2 receiver behind Julio Jones in Atlanta. He was a number 2 behind Christian Kirk in Jacksonville, yet the Jaguars are paying him like he is a consistent 1,500-yard threat, when in reality, Ridley has never even come close to that. And given the presence of DeAndre Hopkins, it's hard to envision Ridley living up to that hefty $92 million deal. Offense. Tight ends, Josh Oliver. You can argue that expensive starting tight ends like David Njoku, Cole Kmet, and Dalton Schultz are slightly overpaid. But hey, at least they produce like TE1s and make their respective quarterbacks better. But Josh Oliver, well, he's not one of those guys. In the 2023 offseason, the Minnesota Vikings signed Oliver to a 3-year deal worth $21 million. That was a mind-boggling number for a guy with 26 receptions, 230 yards, and 2 touchdowns at the time that he put the pen to the paper. It was also baffling because, well, the Vikings have a top 5 tight end in football in TJ Hawkinson. So why pay Oliver $7 million annually to be a rotational player? The Vikings gave Oliver $21 million presumably because of his elite run blocking. Yet he only played 42% of their snaps in 2023, catching 22 passes for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns. Offense. Running back, Miles Sanders. After a career year with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2022, Sanders signed a 4-year contract with the Carolina Panthers worth $25.4 million. That is the 7th biggest active contract for a running back, and his $6.35 million AAV ranks 12th at the position. That's awfully high for a guy with only a single 1,000-yard season on his resume, which he accomplished by playing behind the league's best O-line in Philly. Sanders was awful in his first year at the Panthers, rushing for just 432 yards and 1 touchdown. He averaged a career-low 3.3 yards per carry and lost his starting job to Chuba Hubbard, who finished with 902 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. Offense. Offensive tackle, Jawaan Taylor. After losing Pro Bowler Orlando Brown Jr. in free agency, the Chiefs pivoted to ex-Jacksonville Jaguars offensive tackle Jawaan Taylor, signing him to a massive 4-year contract worth $80 million. It was an astonishing amount of money for a player who committed 19 penalties and allowed 7 sacks over his last 2 seasons per Pro Football Focus. Playing on a Chiefs offensive line loaded with stars, Taylor's play was inexplicably even worse in 2023. He committed a league-high 20 penalties and allowed 5 sacks, while garnering a PFF grade of 51.6. It is absolutely ludicrous that Taylor has the 9th highest AAV among all offensive tackles at $20 million. It's also impressive that the Chiefs managed to win a Super Bowl even though one half of Patrick Mahomes' bookends was a giant liability. Offense. Center, Lloyd Cushenberry. Cushenberry might manage to prove us all wrong with his change of scenery, but as of right now, it's hard to understand why the Titans paid the ex-Denver Bronco $50 million over 4 years. We know that the Titans had to address their offensive line. Heck, that's why they used their first-round pick on J.C. Latham, 1 year after using their first-rounder on another offensive tackle in Peter Skoronski. Cushenberry has only finished with a PFF grade of higher than 65.0 in one of his 4 NFL seasons. He allowed 11 sacks as a Bronco, and he didn't exactly crush it as a run blocker, making him a mediocre to below average center. So it is beyond us how he's behind only Eric McCoy and Frank Ragnow for the biggest contract among centers, and also how he's tied with one of the league's best in Ryan Kelly of the Indianapolis Colts. Offense. Guard Robert Hunt. Make no mistake, the new Carolina Panthers starting guard will improve the offensive line considerably in 2024. He's also making way too much money for a non-Pro Bowl / superstar level offensive lineman. Carolina handed Hunt a 5-year deal worth $100 million in free agency. That's just big-time overpayment, considering that he has never earned a PFF grade higher than 73.7 in a full season. Hunt had his best season in 2023, but the sample size was smaller since he missed 6 games. So the Panthers are paying him to be Quentin Nelson and Chris Lindstrom-like when he's only been a slightly above-average guard in his career. Defense. Defensive end, Draymond Jones. We may be nitpicking a little bit here, but Seattle Seahawks defensive end Draymond Jones simply makes way too much. At least way more than he actually deserves. Having signed a 3-year deal worth $51.53 million in the 2023 offseason. It was mind-boggling that Seattle gave the ex-Bronco that much money considering he had a 2022 PFF grade of 51.8 and a horrid 41.8 run defense grade. Defense. Defensive tackle, Deron Payne. After tallying a career-high 11.5 sacks in the 2022 season, Payne was awarded a lucrative 4-year contract extension from the Washington Commanders worth $90 million. Too bad Washington paid Payne like a superstar when he only had 1 Pro Bowl season under his belt up to that point. Prior to 2022, Payne had only 5+ sacks in a season once, with no All-Pro or Pro Bowl selections on his resume. Sure enough, Payne only had 4 sacks in 2023. Through his first 6 seasons, Payne hasn't graded higher than 68.2 at PFF in a single season. Yet, he's being paid like he's in that top tier of defensive tackles with Chris Jones and Christian Wilkins. Holy overpayment, Batman. Defense. Off-ball linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds. The Chicago Bears signed the ex-Bills linebacker to a giant 4-year deal worth $72 million in 2023 free agency, ignoring the obvious fact that he was the beneficiary of playing in a star-studded Buffalo defense. Edmonds, who was last named to a Pro Bowl in 2020, was burned for 450 yards and 3 TDs in coverage during the 2023 season per Pro Football Reference. Since PFR began tracking passer rating allowed when targeted in 2018, Edmonds has allowed a rating of 85.3 or higher in 4 seasons. Oh, and PFF graded him at 56.6 in 2023. So, making him the 3rd highest inside linebacker is an interesting decision now, isn't it? Defense. Outside linebacker, Von Miller. In the 2022 offseason, the Buffalo Bills signed the 2-time Super Bowl champion to a 6-year contract worth $120 million. It made sense for a Super Bowl devoid franchise to add a future Hall of Famer with championship pedigree, but it hasn't taken long for this contract to age like Mill. Miller was off to a strong start in 2022 before, unfortunately, suffering a season-ending ACL tear. He was virtually non-existent in 2023, recording 0 sacks or forced fumbles while garnering a horrible PFF grade of 45.4. So it's pretty obvious that Miller is past his prime. And though Buffalo has an easy way out of his deal in 2025, the fact remains that he carries a ridiculously high salary as a guy who is past his best before date. And don't forget that the cap-strapped Bills had to cut ties with Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Mitch Morse, Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde this offseason, largely because they were overpaying guys like Miller. Defense. Cornerback, Trayvon Diggs. Diggs has 2 Pro Bowl nods and a first-team All-Pro selection for one simple reason. He's a great ball hawker. It's hard to hate on 52 pass breakups and 18 career interceptions in 47 games. So, at a glance, he is worth every penny of the 5-year $97 million extension that he signed in 2023. right? Wrong. Those INT totals are hot and all, but Diggs is also one of the worst man-to-man cover corners in the league. The numbers do not lie. From 2020 to 2022, PFR had him down for 2,247 yards and 12 touchdowns allowed in coverage. Despite being named a Pro Bowler in 2022, Diggs yielded a 64.7 completion percentage when targeted. Dallas will tell you that they're paying him because they think he's an elite shutdown corner. No. He is a glorified interception specialist. That does not make Diggs worthy of the fourth most expensive cornerback contract in football. Defense. Free safety, Marcus Williams. Williams is one of the best all-around free safeties in the game. He's also very overpaid with a $14 million average annual value. Both can be true. In 2022, the Baltimore Ravens signed the ex-New Orleans Saints star to a 5-year deal worth $70 million. It's just way too much money for a player at a position that doesn't demand that much money these days. Injuries have limited Williams to 21 games over his first 2 years in Baltimore, and per PFR, he allowed 322 receiving yards and 4 TDs in coverage in 11 games during the 2023 season, while also allowing an opposing passer rating of 117.2. 14 million AAV for that. Good thing the Ravens have Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey to bail him out. I'm just saying. Defense. Strong safety, Amani Hoegler. Hoegler is in the midst of a 3-year, $33 million extension that he signed with Tennessee ahead of the 2022 season. Suffice to say, the contract has not aged well for Tennessee. Hoegler has yielded an opposing passer rating of over 100 and a completion percentage of 70+% in each of the last 2 years. Once renowned as a ball hawker, he has just 2 interceptions in 22 games since getting that overly generous extension. Special teams. Kicker, Jason Sanders. Miami Dolphins kicker Jason Sanders is in the midst of a 5-year, $22 million contract extension that he signed in the 2021 season. Among all active kickers, only Younghoe Koo, Jake Elliott, Justin Tucker, and Matt Gay have higher contract values than Sanders. But get this, those 4 guys all rank among the top 10 in field goal percentage among active kickers. Sanders ranks just 19th on that list with a meh career success rate of 83.33%. Special teams. Punter, Jack Fox. After Michael Dixon of the Seattle Seahawks, Detroit Lions punter Jack Fox has the biggest contract at the position. But Fox's punting numbers are awfully mediocre for a guy whose 46.4 yards per punt placed him 22nd a year ago. His 26 punts inside the 20-yard line placed Fox 16th overall, which, again, is not ideal. But hey, what changes would you make to our list of the worst contract at every NFL position right now? What do you think we got right? Who do you think we got wrong? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.